I am. Imagine a very difficult conversation you've had with most likely a loved one or someone who has been just really kind of where you feel hurt in that relationship or angry or upset. Everybody imagine that for a moment. Imagine yourself in that conversation. Hopefully it still has some life in it. So if you imagine that, what goes on in your body right now? Bill's making what happens in your body, Bill?
It's an overall sense of being compressed, contracted, diminished.
Right. And then I would point out that that's a historical response.
That's
a strategy. Where's the contraction in your body, Bill?
It's pretty much all over. And what I said, contraction, I meant from the fingertips and down to the feet and voice, the whole thing. I don't know if you can hear it now, but my throat immediately contracted.
Okay, so what I would do if I was coaching you in this session, I would say, well, that is an overwhelm. It's if I was saying pick an intense thing from 1 to 10, very clearly you're up there in the 9, 10, 8,
9, 10.
Whatever that is.
Yep.
Right. So I would ask, let's find something that's a 1 or a 2. But I would also say, since you said, there seems to be an epicenter in your throat, right?
It's one of them.
One of them. So if you bring down the level of that intensity down to a 2 or 3, can you do that?
Yep, it's done.
Okay, where in your body is the epicenter of that that sense of, that's the fight, flight, freeze kind of thing going on? Where is it in your body?
The response to that, it was entirely loosening up on the face, neck, and the upper part of my chest. And what happened was I smiled.
Right. Okay. So that was your reaction, was to smile? Or was it, this was
no,
after?
the reaction, that's what happened once I had done what you suggested.
Oh, you're a man who has practiced how to center yourself so you could relax. I'm assuming in this conversation that you don't know any of this stuff.
Okay.
So now imagine a triggering moment in a conversation. That's a 2 or 3 maybe. What happens in your body when you're slightly triggered? What do you notice?
Stiffness in the neck, primarily.
Where? Can you point to
the back
it?
of the neck? Yeah, back of the neck.
Oh, that's an interesting.
Between the first, second, and maybe third cervical.
So everybody has their own places. Does everybody else where would you locate yours, Christian? Okay, so that's here. And what about you, Jack?
I would say, to me, there's a tenseness,
Where?
Well, all over. I'm kind of getting ready. I disagree with something to defend myself, but it's usually in here,
Where? Can't see. You're
in
dark.
my front, in my chest.
You were gesturing around your throat. Is that what you meant? Or your upper chest?
Good enough for right now.
Yeah.
So these are strategies. These are things I call these core strategies. These are old strategies, most likely, that you've practiced. They're not part of the original package. And so here's the question, and it's again, bringing people, this is the conflict I was speaking about, Jack. Whether you're doing this, this happens all the time in Aikido. In fact, in Aikido practice, I can practice so much that I don't even feel this stuff. I just sort of ignore it,
right,
which is part of a not good practice. But, paying attention to the body, this slows it way down. And you ask yourself, put your attention in that part of your body and ask yourself, how old were you? How old was I when I learned to do that? And wait just for the first thought that comes to mind. It doesn't have to be right or wrong or true or false. Christian? 9. Bill?
2.
Jack?
Childhood, between 5 and 8 or 9, you know, elementary age.
Elementary school. Okay, elementary age. Okay, and now here's the thing. You know, when we talk about ki or life that moves through us, and that, you know, this at an early age, you developed this strategy because it was to protect something very, usually when we get hit, we go, ow, and we contract around it. That's to protect it. And it's also keeps us from really being as fully in touch with that part of ourselves as we want, as we can be. We're protecting something. So when you think about 2 years old, or what did you say, Christian? 9?
9.
Or somewhere in the elementary age, Jack, what was going on in your life around that moment in time?
Disruption of relationships, you know,
Okay.
people
Good
being
enough.
highly critical without explaining how to get better, you know, just criticism and all.
Thank you. How about you, Bill?
Birth of my brother,
Ah.
sibling.
Oh, okay. And Christian?
Oh yeah,
Boarding school.
a boarding school. Yeah, boarding.
Any rate, good enough. Good enough. So, Jack, it was around your chest and your throat.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of criticism going on. I'm guessing people weren't really listening to each other, and maybe you didn't feel listened to. So
Right.
I'm gonna guess because the locations in your body. Were you at that moment learning to protect your heart and your holding your expression, keeping it to yourself?
Sometimes.
Was it for the sake of security, or to be loved or belong?
Part of it was belonging,
What else?
just not, you know, seeing the relationships and the family fragmenting and not wanting that to go away. You know, you want to have people around you that you care about, and when they're gone, you don't have that anymore.
Right. So you were protecting your heart, it sounds like, and also being very careful about what you said.
I'm a
For
pretty, I open my mouth and talk out. So what I was saying back then, I was probably expressing it some way through verbally.
Okay.
Some people
Okay.
act out quietly. I've act out verbally.
I see. So these are old strategies that are embodied now, and I want to just take a moment and that strategy around your expression and around your heart. I know you well enough to know that you can express yourself very well, and that you have a very caring heart. So something about those old strategies worked. And I'm wondering if you could imagine that elementary age Jack, and just imagine him, and not judge him for the strategies, because he was young. That's the best he could do. But for his intention, which was to protect your heart and your expression, keep you safe and loved, and a family together, and just not the family. This is just for you, period. To protect your sense of belonging. How would it feel to just look at that younger Jack for a moment and just appreciate his motivation? Not necessarily the strategies he chose, but his motivation. How would that feel?
I mean, I've done that, and I've come to
Do
realize that
it now.
he did the best he could. And
Do it now,
yeah,
please. Just for us. Just turn to that part of you and just appreciate. And then tell me what goes on in your body now.
well, I feel more relaxed. I don't feel as tense.
Now imagine doing Aikido with this feeling. So, anyway, that's the process. You know, I'm sure, Bill, that you were there probably around security and belonging as well. And you
Oh,
too,
yeah.
Christian, eh? So, you know, just turning into those appreciating the accepting, like you were saying, Christian, those deeper currents that were flowing then, that still flow. And in doing so, your body relaxes and you become more aware and integrated. And that's the practice. And we could do that by ourselves. It was, I guess, the central point. There's a lot of conflict in there to resolve. We have endless conflicts we can be resolving for the rest of our lives within ourselves.
And then I have a question though.
Please.
So from your perspective, a lot of things are going through my mind. Therapies, you know, coaching, counseling. I did counseling work, and this idea of a place where somebody helps you, coaches you to try to get that, because the only change can come from yourself. But then I can relate, many times I went through those kinds of sessions, experiences, and when I went out to the world, my experience, it wasn't practiced enough that I could do that at those moments, but I could do it over time in the office or in the safe place. And to me, that's one of the challenges of being able to.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. And so what I offer then are daily practices for touching into that. Because you're right. If you don't practice it, it just becomes what Wendy Palmer would call shelf help. And
what'd she call it?
Shelf help.
Shelf help.
Take it off the shelf when somebody asks you to.
It just goes back on the shelf and you don't access it. But in order to change deeply ingrained habits, it takes, as Strozzi would say, a deliberate, rigorous, intentional practice over time.
And I wonder, this is what intrigues me with the practice of Aikido, as I've been exposed to it, you know, in groups. We don't sit and watch movies and talk about it. But to me, those practices have to operate in a social dimension. I mean, we have to do internal things like you're leading me to, and you're the coach, but it has to be engaged in that social dimension. I mean, I believe, because I've been reading.
We're always in the social dimension. We all go outside, we go to work, we're in our relationships.
Correct.
Endless places to practice.
Well, but there's a practice that's different. It's like I use the analogy, doing a kata. You can see people doing a kata, and then when they move into the sparring or the connection, they forget it, or it's not practiced enough yet, you know? So I see that as a transformation, a transition that needs to take place. And how does one facilitate that, you know? So that's what I meant by a process.
I agree. And
a choreography, you know?
I think that most Aikido practitioners that I know, most of them, don't practice. Don't practice meaning within their practice. They go through the motions, but they're not bringing in all the intentions that are essential to also be practicing. So again, when I think about what we can teach as a group, I would like to teach how to practice qualities of integrity and dignity and honesty. These are qualities that we can live and transmit. How do we be those things, be those qualities in difficult relationships, and let those qualities lead us? So, since I was going to teach today, and I'm really loving the conversation, would you like to see the daily practice that I would be teaching?
Yeah.
And then I'll be teaching tomorrow. That would build these, the capacity to take this, we just did outside.
Yeah.
I mean, how about
So
you,
this
Bill?
is from the dojo to the street. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Christian, is that okay? You've probably seen it before, but now in the context of the conversation, I will share it. It's a way of resourcing and centering. So it goes like this, and it's a Tai Chi move. It's not an Aikido move, but same difference. And this would be a singular practice. And it goes
For
like
yourself.
this. Yeah, singular practice. So, you know, that it's like your dojo is your body. And, you know, so you practice it internally to shift habits. Now imagine doing what I'm saying for 5 minutes every day for the next year. And feel free to do it with me. It goes like this. Standing up. See my feet.
David.
Goes like this. So you move to ground. Just watch for a second. Ground, water, fire, wind, and space. Ground, water, fire, wind, and space. So if you move to ground and ask yourself, what's the ground that I stand on? What do I deeply care about? What matters to me? Ask yourself that. And if you're looking for qualities, this is the quality of meaning or understanding. What is it that you care about? Where will you take a stand? What do you care about? What matters to you? What matters to you, Christian? In a short sentence at the most. Can't hear you.
Lost your mic. It must be on mute.
Yeah, you're muted.
Not you, Christian. There we go.
Good. Yeah, so it's like what I was talking about with Aikido, where you go through the motions. And of course, if you just practice going through the motions, that's what you practice and that's what you become, is learning how to do things by going through the motions, which is one of the problems of any discipline. So in this discipline, I ask people to really not only shape themselves, like you were talking about, Jack, about form, but also ask themselves and articulate, what is it that you care about? What is the ground that you stand on, Christian? And you'll notice this is not an easy question. You'll notice that this is not a question any of us have been asked growing up. It's our education that has taught us to not access what we care about, what we feel. It brings us into our head and what we think, and it rewards us for that, but not for this. So imagine every day asking yourself and articulating, what is it that matters to you? What do you care about? What's the ground you stand on? What would you take a stand for? So that's ground. It's about meaning and understanding. Under the ground you stand on, and the ground I stand on, is where we find understanding. That's our common ground. Ground. Water. Put your hands behind you, facing behind you. And now imagine those people who came before you, your ancestors, the ones who are healthy and whole, the great teachers of this planet, the ones who are present and the ones who have gone. imagine all these hands holding you. They're the wind at your back. Appreciate them for a moment. And if that's too much, just think of one person in your life that came before you. One person who embodied a quality that you admire, that you love, that you would love to be more like. Who would that be? And what was the quality? Jack?
I think of patience in conflict, patience.
Who was it who came before you that really embodied that?
It was a kind of a mentor, somebody I had growing up. He was a religious person.
What was the name?
Father, somebody, I can't think of his name now, but I can picture him.
Think of him with his hand on your back and lean and rest in it for a moment. And as you speak his name, or as you imagine him, imagine that quality of his coming through you. And notice any shifts in your body and in how you feel. How is it just to appreciate that quality, Jack?
It's a very soothing, appreciative, calming awareness.
So this is a shape of a form, a shape of patience. You have many resources behind us. And again, this is something we don't think about too much. It's not something we're taught. Everybody's up here in front of them, but rarely, it's the rare one who remembers all their relationships behind them. So same thing with who's behind you and all those who walk beside you now. You guys are all my resources. You walk beside me in this world. You know, in a certain sense, Bill, you're slightly in between, behind and next to me as my, an older dear friend. So, and then there's the people who walk beside us who trigger the heck out of us. I call them our light bringers. And those people we can internally practice our connection skills. And then the young ones in front of us, those young ones who remind us to play, the young ones who keep us close to the earth and remind us of beginner mind, Shoshin. So gather your relationships. This is water, and it's about belonging. So ground, water, when you know the ground you stand on, and you're connected to all your relations, then you can move to fire and you can speak your truth powerfully, resourcefully, in a relaxed, honest, clear way. Connecting to all your resources, centering, and speaking your truth. And like the sword cut in Aikido, we want a very sharp sword. And as we're cutting things away from our lives and cutting things into our lives for the sake of that deeper connection. So sometimes we have to cut away a relationship for their sake and our sake. It's kind of loving protection, protective use of force, if you will. It's power. And there's a lot we can do with that in practicing leadership and skills and speaking our truth and embodying the qualities of integrity and honesty and dignity and graciousness. Fire, wind, let it go by. See where it comes from. Watch it go by. Watch it go by, and then see where it comes from. Right. So you're getting off the line. So if the punch is coming this way, you're stepping off that line, let it go by, see where it comes from, and watch it go by. So you imagine someone in front of you like me going, Bill, you're doing it all wrong. What is wrong with you? Step off the line of my attack, see where it comes from, and watch it go by. what is wrong with you? I can't believe that you would even, show up in a way. Don't fixate on me, Bill. Watch it go by. Turn your head. That's it. So, Christian, if I'm talking to you and you turn towards me and I'm saying, Christian, you are so full of shit. I cannot believe, before you turn, notice how it feels in your body. And then turn to let it go by and notice how that relaxes your body. This is about not taking what other people say personally. This is about self-regulation. So wind, and then space. And this is just about presence. So all these other practices, ground, water, fire, wind, are in service of creating a spaciousness within yourself and around you. The more relaxed you are, the more aware you can be. So imagine practicing that every day